If you clicked on this video because you wanted one shocking secret food that makes cancer disappear, let's start with the truth. No real doctor, no honest scientist, and no serious cancer center will tell you that one bite of one food can magically kill cancer. But here is what they will tell you, and this is where the real power begins. The way you eat, day after day, year after year, can change the environment inside your body. It can influence inflammation, it can affect blood sugar, it can shape your gut microbiome, it can help with healthy weight, it can support immune function, and all of that matters because cancer does not grow in a vacuum, it grows in a biological environment. And the good news is that environment is not completely out of your hands. The American Cancer Society, the American Institute for Cancer Research, the National Cancer Institute, Harvard nutrition researchers, and physicians like Dr. William Li all point to the same bigger pattern. No single food is the miracle. The pattern is the miracle. More plants, more fiber, more color, more whole foods, fewer processed meats, less alcohol, less sugar-loaded, ultra-processed junk that keeps insulin high and weight climbing. That is not hype. That is not internet fantasy. That is the boring, powerful, evidence-based truth. And sometimes the most life-changing truth is not flashy. It is repeatable. So in this video, I want to walk you through 12 foods and food groups that come up again and again in serious discussions about lowering cancer risk and supporting the body's natural defense systems. Not as magic bullets, not as substitutes for screening, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy, or medical advice, but as foods with real biological value. Foods researchers keep studying because they appear to work on some of the exact pathways that matter most: DNA protection, inflammation control, insulin balance, gut health, oxidative stress, angiogenesis, and cell signaling. And pay attention, because the biggest secret is not just what these foods are. It is why they work better together than alone. Once you understand that, your grocery cart starts to look different. Your plate starts to look different, and over time, your body starts to live in a very different internal climate. Broccoli and the cruciferous family come first. That means broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, bok choy, kale, arugula, and similar vegetables. These are not trendy health foods. They are some of the most studied vegetables in cancer prevention research. The National Cancer Institute highlights cruciferous vegetables because they contain glucosinolates, compounds that break down into biologically active substances scientists have studied for their potential anti-cancer effects. In laboratory and animal studies, these compounds have been linked with protecting cells from DNA damage, helping inactivate carcinogens, reducing inflammation, encouraging damaged cells to self-destruct, and even interfering with pathways related to tumor blood vessel formation. Now, science also demands honesty, so here's the part most sensational videos leave out. Human evidence is more mixed than lab evidence. That does not mean these foods are useless. It means nutrition science is complex, and real human lives are harder to study than cells in a dish. Still, the fact that these vegetables keep showing up in serious recommendations tells you something important. They are nutrient-dense, fiber-rich, low in calorie density, and part of the dietary patterns most consistently linked with better long-term health. In simple words, they help create a body that is harder for disease to thrive in. And there is something emotionally powerful about that. Every time you put broccoli, cabbage, or Brussels sprouts on your plate, you are not performing a miracle. You are casting a vote for better cellular housekeeping, a vote for steadier metabolism, a vote for more fiber feeding the gut bacteria that help regulate inflammation and immune function. Roast them, stir-fry them, add them to soups, chop them into omelets. If you hate plain steamed broccoli, good. Stop forcing yourself to eat boring food. Season it well. Make it crisp. Make it delicious. Healthy food only works long-term when it becomes normal. Berries are another powerful part of this picture, especially blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. These tiny fruits are loaded with polyphenols and pigments that give them those deep blue, red, and purple colors. When experts talk about eating the rainbow, this is exactly what they mean. Color in plants is often a clue that bioactive compounds are present, and berries are one of the easiest ways to bring a concentrated burst of those compounds into your routine. What makes berries powerful is not just that they contain antioxidants, it is that they come packaged with fiber, water, vitamins, and plant chemicals in a whole food form. That matters because leading cancer organizations repeatedly warn people not to confuse foods with pills. A supplement bottle can never perfectly imitate the complex matrix inside a real berry. Whole foods behave differently in the body. They digest differently. They interact differently with the microbiome. They satisfy hunger differently, and they fit into real meals without the false promise that one capsule can erase the cost of a poor diet. Berries also help in another quiet but important way. They make healthier eating easier. When someone is trying to get off sugar-heavy desserts, heavily processed snacks, and mindless evening junk food, berries can become a bridge food, sweet enough to feel comforting, nutrient-dense enough to feel smart, and flexible enough to go into yogurt, oatmeal, smoothies, or just a bowl by themselves. That kind of practical food matters because consistency beats intensity. You do not lower risk by eating perfectly for 3 days. You lower risk by building a pattern you can still follow 6 months from now. Tomatoes, especially cooked tomatoes, deserve a place in this conversation too. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, the red pigment that has drawn attention from researchers for years. Dr. William Lee often talks about tomatoes as one of the foods that may support the body's defense systems, and he points out something simple but useful. Cooking tomatoes can increase the availability of lycopene, especially when tomatoes are eaten with healthy fats like olive oil. That means tomato sauce, stewed tomatoes, and slow-cooked tomatoes can be more than comfort food. They can be a strategic part of a protective eating pattern. But let's go deeper than the headline. Tomatoes are not powerful because they are exotic. They are powerful because they are accessible. They are in sauces, soups, salads, stews, and family meals all over the world. When a food is inexpensive, familiar, and easy to use, it has a far better chance of changing public health than a rare superfood most people buy once and forget. This is one of the most underrated truths in health communication. The best food is often not the most magical food. It is the food you will actually keep eating. Try swapping creamy, ultra-processed sauces for simple tomato-based sauces. Add tomato and olive oil to beans. Use fresh tomatoes in salads or cook cherry tomatoes until they collapse into something sweet and concentrated. These are small actions, but small actions repeated thousands of times shape metabolism, weight, and inflammation in ways that matter. Beans and lentils are one of the most underrated weapons in a healthy diet. Black beans, chickpeas, lentils, kidney beans, pinto beans, soybeans, split peas. This entire category deserves far more attention than it gets. When researchers and cancer prevention organizations talk about food patterns that protect health, legumes show up over and over again. Why? Because they are one of the most efficient delivery systems in nutrition. They bring fiber, plant protein, minerals, slow-digesting carbohydrates, and satiety all in one package. That combination is a big deal. Fiber helps support healthy gut bacteria. Slow-digesting carbs help control blood sugar spikes. Better satiety makes overeating less likely. And healthier body weight matters enormously in cancer prevention because excess body fat is linked with increased risk for multiple cancers. This is one reason Harvard experts emphasize dietary patterns that help regulate glucose, insulin, lipids, and inflammation. Beans quietly do all of that without the marketing budget of protein bars and powders, and beans are humble. That is part of their brilliance. They do not need a wellness influencer to sell them. They do not need a silver package or a celebrity endorsement. A pot of lentil soup, a chickpea salad, black beans with vegetables, hummus with raw vegetables, bean chili, or lentils under roasted tomatoes and greens can build meals that are deeply satisfying and metabolically steady. If you want food that helps lower risk and saves money at the same time, this is one of the strongest categories on the list. Garlic and onions, the allium family, may seem ordinary, but ordinary foods are often where the deepest health wins are hiding. Garlic and onions are repeatedly discussed in research because they contain sulfur compounds and other plant chemicals that scientists study for their potential role in cancer-related pathways. The American Cancer Society includes onions and garlic among the vegetables being studied for cancer-fighting properties, and that should tell you something. The foods sitting in your kitchen right now may matter more than the glamorous supplements advertised to you online. But beyond chemistry, garlic and onions are flavor builders, and that matters more than people realize. When healthy food tastes good, people stay with it. When vegetables are cooked with garlic, onions, herbs, and olive oil, they stop feeling like punishment and start feeling like real food. This changes compliance. It changes family habits. It changes what children grow up thinking dinner is supposed to taste like. In other words, garlic and onions do not just contribute compounds. They help make an entire anti-inflammatory, plant-forward way of eating sustainable. If you want practical advice, start your meals with these foods. Build soups, sauces, lentils, vegetable sautés, and whole grain dishes on a base of garlic and onion. The smartest health changes are rarely dramatic. They are structural. Whole grains matter for many of the same reasons: oats, brown rice, quinoa, barley, whole wheat, farro, wild rice. The American Cancer Society notes that studies show whole grains may lower the risk of colorectal cancer, and that is important because colorectal cancer is one of the cancers most closely tied to diet and lifestyle patterns. Whole grains keep the fiber-rich parts of the grain that refined grains strip away. That means they digest more slowly, support fullness better, and feed the microbiome more effectively. This is one of the biggest hidden mistakes in modern eating. People think they are eating grains, but they are actually eating pulverized, refined, rapidly absorbed starches that do very little to satisfy the body in a stable way. Then, blood sugar swings harder, hunger returns faster, energy crashes sooner, and highly processed snacks become irresistible later in the day. A better breakfast of oats and berries, or a better lunch with quinoa, vegetables, and beans does more than change one meal. It can change the next 5 decisions you make. Cancer prevention is not just about one compound attacking one pathway. It is about reducing the biological chaos that poor diet creates. Whole grains help lower that chaos. They bring structure where processed food creates volatility. Leafy greens are another cornerstone. Spinach, romaine, kale, Swiss chard, mustard greens, collards, mixed greens. These foods are nutritional overachievers. They bring folate, carotenoids, vitamin K, magnesium, fiber, and a range of phytochemicals without a heavy calorie load. Major cancer centers consistently encourage a plant-heavy plate, and leafy greens are one of the easiest ways to build that foundation. Here is where people often go wrong. They think greens only count if they appear in a perfect salad. Not true. Greens can go in soups, smoothies, stir-fries, omelets, wraps, pasta, rice bowls, bean dishes, and stews. You can wilt spinach into tomato sauce. You can blend greens into lentil soup. You can toss arugula on whole grain toast with tomatoes and beans. The more friction you remove, the more often you will actually eat them. And greens matter psychologically too. When a plate is full of color, texture, and volume from plants, there is simply less room for the foods that crowd health out. This is why many experts prefer talking about addition before restriction. Add more greens, more beans, more berries, more whole grains, more vegetables, and many of the worst foods begin to lose territory naturally. Soy foods in their minimally processed forms also belong in this conversation. Tofu, edamame, tempeh, unsweetened soy milk. This is one area where misinformation has scared a lot of people unnecessarily. Dr. William Li has discussed research showing soy intake is associated with better outcomes in certain populations, including women with breast cancer in some observational studies. The conversation around soy is often distorted online, but the actual evidence from whole soy foods is far more reassuring than the fear-based myths suggest. What matters here is the form. Whole or minimally processed soy foods are very different from the exaggerated stories people hear on social media. In practical dietary patterns, soy can replace processed meats, add protein without saturated fat overload, and help build more plant-based meals. That alone is valuable. Remember, many of the strongest cancer prevention recommendations focus not only on what to include, but also on what to replace. When tofu, edamame, or tempeh takes the place of processed meat, that is a double win. And if you are still skeptical, that is understandable. Health anxiety makes people vulnerable to dramatic headlines. But this is exactly why we lean on large organizations, not random viral posts. If you have a personal medical condition or a hormone-sensitive cancer history, talk to your physician. But for the general viewer, minimally processed soy foods belong in the evidence-based conversation. Nuts and seeds are small foods with a surprisingly big impact. Walnuts, almonds, pistachios, flax seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds. These foods bring healthy fats, fiber, minerals, and plant compounds into the diet, while also helping with satiety and blood sugar control. They are one of the easiest ways to upgrade meals without feeling deprived. There is also something important about their texture and convenience. Many unhealthy eating decisions happen because people are busy, tired, or unprepared. In that moment, the easiest food wins. If the easiest food is a pastry, chips, or candy, your biology pays the price. If the easiest food is a handful of walnuts and berries, or yogurt with chia seeds, or oatmeal topped with flax and almonds, your body experiences a completely different cascade of signals. Different insulin response, different fiber intake, different fullness, different long-term consequences, and seeds deserve more respect than they get. Flax seeds, for example, can be stirred into oats, yogurt, or smoothies. Pumpkin seeds can go on salads and soups. Sesame can be added to vegetables and grain bowls. These are not dramatic interventions. They are identity shifts. They are the habits of someone who is quietly building resilience. Green tea is one of the most talked about beverages in discussions of cellular health, and for good reason. Green tea contains catechins such as EGCG, compounds that researchers have studied for antioxidant and signaling effects. Dr. William Li often points to green tea as a beverage that may support the body's natural defenses, and epidemiologic research has made it a recurring topic in cancer prevention conversations. Now, to stay scientifically honest, drinking green tea does not give anyone immunity from disease. It is not a permission slip for smoking, poor sleep, obesity, inactivity, chronic stress, heavy alcohol use, or processed food. But when green tea replaces sugary beverages, giant dessert coffees, or alcohol, its value becomes much bigger than the catechins alone. It is not just what green tea adds, it is what it can push out. This is one of the smartest ways to think about nutrition, not just as addition, but as substitution. Water instead of soda. Tea instead of sugar bombs, whole foods instead of ultra-processed snacks. Every better substitution changes the internal terrain a little, and those little changes accumulate. Coffee can also fit into a smart, evidence-based lifestyle. This surprises people because health advice online is often wildly inconsistent, but serious researchers do not tend to think in cartoon extremes. Coffee is not automatically angelic and not automatically toxic. What matters is the overall pattern. The critical detail is what most people actually drink. Black coffee or lightly sweetened coffee is one thing. A giant liquid dessert full of syrup, whipped cream, and sugar is another. The body does not respond to those drinks the same way. If your coffee habit delivers hundreds of excess calories and drives weight gain, the benefit conversation changes quickly. But in a sensible pattern, coffee can fit. And that matters because good health advice respects reality. It does not ask people to live in a laboratory. It teaches them how to make the version of their real routine that serves their long-term biology better. Extra virgin olive oil and the broader Mediterranean-style pattern it represents bring the entire message together. This is bigger than a single ingredient, and that is intentional because by now you should be seeing the real secret. The foods in this conversation are powerful partly because they tend to travel together. Beans with olive oil, tomatoes with greens, whole grains with vegetables, nuts and seeds with berries, fish or legumes alongside large portions of plants. This is the pattern major experts and cancer prevention organizations keep circling back to. More plant foods, healthier fats, fewer highly processed foods, and a dietary pattern that helps manage inflammation, glucose, lipids, and body weight. Olive oil matters because it can help people move away from butter-heavy, fried, ultra-processed eating and towards something simpler and more sustainable. It makes vegetables taste better. It makes bean dishes feel rich. It helps tomato-based meals become more satisfying. It turns healthy eating into food that actually feels like living. And here is a very important trust-building point that every honest health channel should say clearly. Alcohol is not the hidden health secret many people online pretend it is. Some still try to sell the idea that red wine is secretly protective, but major cancer organizations are much more cautious, and many now say plainly that alcohol is a carcinogen and the safest level for cancer prevention is as low as possible. This is exactly why source quality matters. A persuasive script is not enough. It has to rest on the strongest available evidence. So, if we step back, what are the real patterns that make these foods matter? They increase fiber, and fiber changes the gut environment in ways that may support lower colorectal cancer risk and better metabolic health. They help manage body weight by increasing fullness and lowering reliance on energy-dense processed foods. They bring a wider range of phytochemicals, vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats into the diet in whole food form, which is very different from chasing isolated megadose supplements. Many of them help support steadier blood sugar and insulin patterns, and that matters because chronically high insulin and related growth signals are part of the environment researchers worry about. Most importantly, they make a plant-forward dietary pattern realistic, repeatable, and enjoyable. And that brings us to the flip side of the conversation, the foods these choices naturally push out. Processed meats, sugar-sweetened drinks, heavily refined grains, ultra-processed snacks that flood the body with calories but bring almost nothing back in return. What hurts you is not only what you are missing, it is also what keeps replacing real food. If breakfast is dessert in a wrapper, lunch is processed meat in white bread, dinner is fried starch with a sugary drink, and your snacks are engineered to keep you eating, then your body is fighting every day inside an environment of excess calories, poor satiety, weak fiber intake, unstable blood sugar, and rising body fat. That is the environment you want to move away from. So do not think of this as a list of disconnected superfoods. Think of it as an escape route. Cruciferous vegetables instead of fries, beans instead of processed meat, whole grains instead of refined starch, berries instead of candy, green tea instead of sugary drinks, olive oil and herbs instead of bottled ultra-processed sauces. These are swaps, and swaps are powerful because they do not demand perfection. They just demand direction. That word matters because fear alone does not change lives. Panic does not build habits. Shame does not fix dinner. People do not need another health video that leaves them scared for 10 minutes and unchanged for 10 years. They need clarity. They need realism. They need a plan they can actually live. So here is that plan. Build your plate around plants first. Fill at least 2/3 of it with vegetables, fruits, beans, and whole grains more often than not. Add nuts and seeds in small amounts. Use olive oil instead of drowning everything in ultra-processed sauces. Swap refined grains for whole grains where you can. Replace processed meat with beans, lentils, fish, tofu, or other healthier proteins more often. Drink water, tea, or sensible coffee instead of sugary drinks. Keep alcohol as low as possible. And remember that movement matters too. Food, physical activity, body weight, blood sugar, and inflammation all speak to each other inside the body every single day. If you want one simple way to remember everything in this message, remember this phrase: crowd out the risk. Do not just fear the risk. Crowd out the processed food with real food. Crowd out the empty calories with fiber and volume. Crowd out the blood sugar roller coaster with meals that have structure. Crowd out helplessness with preparation. That is how people actually change. Not by memorizing a list, but by building a system. And if cancer already exists in your life, either for you or someone you love, this part matters deeply. Food matters, but food is not a substitute for oncology care. Never let anyone sell you a fantasy that a grocery list can replace a medical team. What food can do is support the body, improve overall health, help with energy, weight, blood sugar, and long-term resilience, and in some cases, help support treatment and recovery under professional guidance. That is not small, that is meaningful, but it is not the same as a cure. The real secret is not that cancer suddenly dies when you eat one perfect meal. The real secret is that disease has a harder time thriving in a body that is consistently cared for. A body with better metabolic health, better weight control, better blood sugar control, better gut health, better inflammatory balance, better nourishment. That is less cinematic than a miracle cure, but it is more trustworthy. And in health, trustworthy beats cinematic every single time. So the next time you shop for food, do not ask, what is the one magic item? Ask a better question. Ask, what kind of internal environment am I building? Because that question can change breakfast, lunch, dinner, and eventually the direction of your future. And once you start asking that question consistently, you stop chasing health theater and start building real health, one meal, one habit, one ordinary but powerful decision at a time. That is how lasting change looks in real life. Not dramatic, not instant, but deeply powerful when repeated long enough, meal after meal.